You're listening to the Today's Eden Podcast, Episode 3. So today I'm talking with Anna Solis, and she is a certified nutritionist with several specialty certifications on top of that as well. I just loved talking with her and hearing her story. We talk about health, women's health and wellness, what vitamins we should be taking, how to better handle our stress, especially if we're working women. And also she just tells us an honest and true story about her struggle with an eating disorder, which I think is such an issue today that maybe we haven't really been aware of. So I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. Let's get to it. Hey, Anna, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that you asked me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah, so I am a certified nutritionist. I see a lot of clients who have food sensitivities, autoimmune disorders, and so, the list goes on. Um, so I really got interested in nutrition and stuff. I've always been interested in it because my mom was always more on the holistic side. So we never went to the doctor or anything like that. She always had some home remedy for us, and we always ate fairly healthy. But I also played sports a lot, and so that was a big factor in it too, because I wanted to be the best of the best. So I was always doing research on nutrition and things like that. And then I also played sports through college too. But I think I became so obsessed with it at some point that it became unhealthy. And so that's where I kind of saw how it could be harmful to people too. But yeah, so in college, I picked up an eating disorder that really took a toll on my body physically, especially while playing sports. Like, I remember, like, I was never able to grow out my fingernails or anything like that. They'd always be dry and brittle, and my hair would break off, and I had really bad skin. Just because I was so depleted of nutrients that I needed, especially at such a crucial time. And it definitely caused a lot of other issues with like depression, and I had a horrible idea of like self-image and things like that.
Right. Was there like any certain thing that you feel like led you to that point?
Well, I think I had a lot of unhealthy thoughts just like growing up, because like being an athlete and stuff, I just thought I had to be this perfect. I had to have like this perfect body that looked like all the other athletes that I was seeing on TV and stuff like that. And my mom, she was like beautiful, and she was always very perfect. Not that it was her fault, but I just wanted to be like my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look like my mom. And so I always, I guess, idolized her and like people I was seeing on TV, and so I just had very unhealthy thoughts like towards myself. So I remember like any big event that was coming up, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna restrict my calories for this whole week, and I'm gonna look awesome. And then I would of course end up binge eating, and then I would feel really guilty, and I would just kind of constantly go through that process of where I would eat a lot, and then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to eat for the next 12 hours, or I'll just eat lettuce for this day. And so,
Oh my
yeah, it was
gosh.
unhealthy
Yeah.
cycle.
So how did that so I know you played basketball your 4 years at college. So how did that affect like your performance, your athleticism?
Um, well, I would just get so tired because I also would, of course, like if I binge ate or something like that, I would work out 2 hours on top of what we were doing. So my body just broke down my senior year. I got a lot of stress fractures, which could have been easily avoided. I got a lot of sinus infections. I had earaches where I would just be crying. It hurt so bad. And that was all just because of what I wasn't eating, or if I was eating too much or something. and just over exercising. So yeah.
Could anybody tell, or at this point, was it still kind of just you yourself only knew?
Only I knew. It was very easy to keep a secret. It's a lot easier than you would think. Like I would eat in secret, like in my dorm room where no one could see. And everyone knew I was healthy and I knew what was healthy, but I had a kind of an emotional connection with it. Whenever I was stressed or hadn't slept enough, like I would definitely be drawn towards those more sugary foods
Mm-hmm.
and couldn't stop eating them because I was so hungry and they're so addicting. And I would get a high for a while and then I would get an extreme low. And to fill that low, I would either have to work out or I would have to do something along those lines. So the only thing that other people saw was like whenever I was eating healthy, and I saw whenever I was working out. So everyone thought I was really healthy. But really, that was the sickest I've ever been.
Right. So would you say, like, for people maybe who aren't on that side of things, like what would you say would be like the signs that we should be aware of that maybe our friend might be doing the same thing or something?
um, well, definitely, there's definitely an emotional connection to it. So people who do have eating disorders normally do seem healthy, or they'll either skip meals or they'll want to eat by themselves. Or if they eat a whole bunch at one time and kind of disappear for a while, if you hear the water running in the bathroom, those all can be signs. Those are signs because I later on told my parents about it because it got so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell them, like, hey, if I disappear right after a meal and you hear the water running in the bathroom, then I'm most likely,
Yeah.
I'm not doing something I'm supposed to. Um, but yeah, telling my parents was probably the first step to where I started to get better.
That
Um,
was going to be my next question, was how were you able to, like, kind of, look outside yourself and kind of see the damage that you were doing, or and then overcome, the battle with that?
mhm. um, well, I mean, I was raised in a Christian home, so I knew what I was doing was wrong. I just wanted so badly to look a certain way and feel a certain way and be popular and all of those things, and I just kept failing over and over again. And I prayed a lot during college, even though I was kind of mad at God. No reason really why to, but I was. And so I still prayed and stuff like that. And God would just always tell me that. He'd be like, I still love you, Anna, no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just always overwhelmed me, and I couldn't understand why he did. And then finally, after I graduated, I went back and lived home with my parents for a while. And it took a lot of stress off of school and basketball. So that definitely helped because I was so stressed out and being perfect and performing in that as well. Um, that helped some. And then when I finally told my parents, I actually was I had to go to the hospital for it for a little while, but I didn't tell anyone what it was for. Like I kind of knew what it was, but I had such a bad burning feeling in my stomach that I couldn't even breathe.
Oh.
Um, so I was in the hospital for a day or two, and so finally I told my parents because they ran all these tests and they didn't know what it was. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just know what it is. I just need to stop. So I told them, and my parents are so awesome. They like prayed with me, um, and they have of course told me that to go to God for help and stuff like that because obviously there's some emotional damage that goes along with it. So I was kind of angry that that's all they told me because I was like, I felt like I needed more help. So it kind of went on a little bit longer after that. But they, of course, were right because I didn't really get healed from it until I did realize that God loved me no matter what. And I started focusing more on things that were true and stopped thinking so much about food because at one point, like that's all I could think about was like how many calories did I eat today? Did I get enough protein in? Did I eat too many carbs, too much sugar? And that was like my constant thoughts 24 hours, like constantly because I hardly slept too. So um, that was just something that was always on my mind.
Right. And I'm sure that it doesn't help when you have like social media and celebrities and TV showing you like this is how you should look, or this is, like if you look
Mhm.
this way, you'll feel great and you'll feel like complete and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because whenever, you're listening to music and it's just talking about like the girls' bodies and how like perfect they are and attractive they are, and then we watch movies and they're all perfect and attractive and stuff like that too. And we think like, hey, that's how I'm supposed to look. And we're just constantly thinking about that and meditating about it 'cause it's in our music and what we see, what's advertised, instead of focusing on what's true. And what's true is what's in the Bible. And so whenever I started focusing on that, on those things, that's whenever it just disappeared and I didn't even really realize it. It just became less frequent. And I noticed that whenever I was more into, like, if I was listening to music, that wasn't really, like, I know that's a weird example, but it really is something that you meditate on when you're, like, listening to it in a song,
Right.
um, watching it on a movie, like, you're thinking about that. So whenever I got away from those type of things and just really started getting more into the Word and spending time with God, that's whenever the biggest changes happened.
Yeah. So I just wanted to read some facts because I had researched this before I had this interview with you, and I was just kind of like blown away at. I had no idea that I knew it was an issue, but I had no idea to this extent. And so I think it's really important that we kind of put that out there, and then maybe we can like give some suggestions of like
Okay.
ways people could avoid it or get help or something. But so the statistics are at least 30 million people of all ages in the world and genders are suffering from an eating disorder in the U.S. today. Like, that is such a big number.
Yeah.
Um, and then it says every 62 minutes, at least one person dies as a direct result from an eating disorder. So for me, that's just like, oh my gosh, like what if I that's why I was asking you the question earlier, like what are the signs that we could be aware of? Because for
Mhm.
myself, I wouldn't hate to think that that was happening under my nose and I could have like said something, or you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, definitely some symptoms or like some signs of it would be again always wanting to eat by yourself. Like if they are purging, they'll have swollen lymph nodes under their on their neck. They kind of have like a puffy face. Of course, drastic weight changes. That would be a sign as well. And then just the way they're acting, they'll act like it's such an emotional connection to food that if you can just kind of tell they have a weird relation with food, that's definitely a big sign. Or if they're always talking about like their body image or something like that, because that's seriously all that you can think about for a really long time. So I mean, the topic's going to come up a lot if it's something that they're suffering with, or not at all, or they'll be hiding it to an extreme as well.
So for as a parent, how do you suggest like other moms out there prevent their daughters from comparing themselves to celebrities and the idealistic image?
Just tell them that it doesn't lead to happiness. I mean, it doesn't at all. There's so much more things that are important than that. So really putting value in other things that are like your relationship with God, and teaching them what's healthy to eat, because that was a big part that helped me change around too, is just realizing how unhealthy I was, because I had always been in nutrition, and I just finally realized like I'm not healthy at all and I feel horrible. I would much rather feel mentally sound and satisfied than looking a certain way. So definitely teaching them like what foods are good for them. So, of course, I didn't eat like any fats at all. And so I was just like in a mental fog all the time as well. And so making sure that they're getting, good fats, a lot of vegetables and protein, and getting enough of it. So just emphasizing the importance on that too.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I think that your story and definitely in your workplace is like a powerful tool that can probably, heal lots of people, just being able to walk with them and help others out in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are a nutrition and wellness consultant, and you have certifications in other areas or specific certifications, anyways. Could you tell us a little bit about what those entail?
Sure. So one of them is first line therapy. It's a great program for people who really just need to learn about the basics of what healthy eating looks like. And so it's designed to where you don't have to count calories and you just have to get certain serving sizes of each nutrient in. So then that way they're not having to, count every single calorie, which can be stressful enough.
Right.
You don't add that onto someone who's not healthy and also worried about their weight, because that again can be unhealthy and lead to the eating disorder.
Yeah.
So I love the way it's set up. It's easy to use. It can honestly anyone can do it. It's healthy for all ages to do as well. So that one's kind of the more basic, and then that's a good place to start. And then finding like food allergies, like trigger foods that they're having,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone broccoli's not healthy for everyone, which I've come to realize, which I thought it was. But people can also have that can be a trigger food to someone, which can cause inflammation or mental fatigue or anything like that. So really just finding people's trigger foods is what's been the the first step whenever I'm working with clients.
Which is, yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that because my daughter actually, we had her tested for like food sensitivities and she
Mhm,
loves broccoli, but that was
mhm.
like one of the number one things that showed up on her test was that she couldn't have broccoli. And I thought that was like the weirdest thing.
Yeah. So what's recommended, especially for people who do have a lot of these trigger foods where they're having either a delayed reaction or immediate reaction, is to do a rotation diet. So that's making sure that you're not eating the same foods every single day, because that can create a food intolerance.
Mm.
So a lot of people who are going like dairy free and things like that, which is great, they do like, they'll drink almond milk every single day. Then they have, a handful of almonds because almonds are a superfood, right? And then they come back and their tests are showing that they're highly allergic to almonds.
Oh my gosh.
It's very good to mix up your dairy alternatives if you are being dairy free, and things like that. And, not eating the same vegetables even every single day and trying to get the biggest variety possible.
Right. And so then your other certification is also the WALS protocol. Am I saying that right?
Uh-huh. Yep. It was created by Dr. Terry Walls, who was diagnosed with MS, and it progressed very fast. And so she was one of the top doctors, and she was getting all of the newest and greatest medications for it, and she just got worse and worse. And she loved biking, and she did taekwondo and all of these things. And she would, of course, wasn't able to do that. She was in a wheelchair, and she finally had to get into a zero gravity wheelchair, and she was just getting so bad. She stumbled across the paleo diet, and so she started doing that, and she was getting more results. She was getting better, and she was able to get off of more of her medications. But then she still didn't think she was getting all of the nutrients she needed. So she kind of made a guideline. So it's a paleo diet, but it might be a little bit more restrictive at times because these are going to be for clients who have autoimmune disorders. And so there are tons of trigger foods. So they have to get rid of nightshades, all nuts and seeds for a while, eggs and dairy, until their immune system just really calms down. And it has to be for a long period of time as well, for them to start seeing their symptoms to go down. And she really pushes doing 3 servings of sulfurous vegetables, so like your broccoli, your kale, your asparagus, 3 cups of leafy green vegetables, and then 3 cups of colorful vegetables. And she also does high fat diets. So she does a lot of coconut oil with it as well. But a lot of clients have had so much success with this, including cancer and stuff as well. Um, I went to the conference 2 years ago, and a lot of the people had MS there. And then I went to it again this past August, and all of those people looked so much better. They looked younger. They were able to, they were more mobile. The ones that were in wheelchairs were walking with canes, but everyone improved who had been on her diet for that long of a time. So it's not a cure, but it can definitely improve symptoms to where you might not even think you have it. So,
Yeah, it sounds that way. I wonder why more people aren't able to know more, like to know about it. Because I know that when I saw it on your bio, like that was one of the few times that I've ever heard about it.
yeah, I definitely hope it like gains some popularity because I mean, again, so many people have had a lot of success with it. It's a hard lifestyle. It's a huge lifestyle change, but it almost takes something as serious as that for people to start eating healthy. Just because sugar and all of those foods are so addicting. So sometimes it does take something extreme like that to be a wake up call.
Right. And that's kind of unfortunate because it seems like food is like one of the biggest preventative things that we could do, but somehow most of the US is still doing it wrong.
hmm Yeah, and again, there's a lot of things that go into that with, the American Standard Diet, and so we could talk about that forever, probably. But yeah, I think people are starting to notice how sick it's making people in America, and they're catching on a little bit more.
So I wanted to ask you, I know a lot of people feel like going gluten free is kind of like a fad thing. And I know that when I had to start asking, or like when I would go to restaurants for a gluten free menu, or if I could, change my order to, be able to eat it the right way, at first, I would kind of get kind of like that look like, oh my gosh, this girl is just trying to be on a diet or whatever. So what do you think about the whole gluten free thing? Is it necessary, or do you think it's just kind of like a thing right now?
I think it is necessary, especially with all the GMO foods that we have, and wheat is one of the top ones that you can't really find a non-GMO grain. It's really hard to. And also, gluten contains a protective property to it, to where it actually signals to our stomach lining to open up. And so that's why people are getting what they call leaky gut a lot of times. And so that can be a factor into it. So unless our food really all changes back to being non-GMO and we're not having all these food intolerances, then maybe gluten would be something that would be fine for everyone again. But I don't. I think it's always going to be something that people will have to go off of if they're wanting to address certain health issues, especially if it has to do with the gut.
So do you think that everybody should kind of steer clear of gluten, or just people who have like health issues?
Um, so people who don't have issues with gluten typically aren't eating a whole lot of it every single day and being exposed to it. So when people go gluten free, it usually just means that they're eating a whole foods diet and less processed foods, because it means that they're getting more vegetables and more fruit and more good animal meats and good fats. Whereas people who are usually eating a lot of gluten, that's in a lot of processed foods and things like that. So that's another reason why I think that a lot of people are saying like, hey, I'm not having success on the gluten-free diet. I don't feel any different. It's because they're getting all those gluten-free snacks that are just loaded with sugar and other processed things and soy and corn and all of that too. So again, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. But if you're not having any issues with gluten and you're just having it every once in a while in a whole food in its whole form, then I don't think it would be an issue for that person.
So yeah, I think we could all probably use a more of a whole food diet anyways.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't remember where I had heard it, but I've been following it ever since. Is that like when you go to the grocery store, avoid all the aisles like in the middle and just kind of stay on the perimeter of the grocery store, which is typically where you find like the meat, the fish, and then all
Mhm.
the fresh vegetables. And then I limit myself to where I go actually into the aisles and I don't like cruise up and down each and every one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, that's a great tip. Because yeah, like you said, that's where all the Whole Foods are going to be on the outside. And if it's a bad temptation, don't even go to the middle one.
Right.
Because if it's not in your house, then it's hard to eat it. So keep it out of your house, and then your chances of success and being healthier will go up.
That's so true. So what do you suggest for women in general? Like, what do we need to be doing, or what do you suggest that we should be doing as far as just nutrition and wellness?
Sure. Number one thing I tell women is not to fad diet. Because when you or go low calorie, because when you go on a low calorie diet, your body actually goes into starvation mode and it can harm you for years to come. So a lot of women that I'm seeing now that are in their 40s and 50s, they're having so much trouble losing weight. And I'm always asking, well, what diets have you gone on before? And they're always low calorie and restrictive diets. So don't restrict yourself of any nutrient. So if it's saying like go low fat or take out all carbs, then it's not necessarily something that's going to benefit you in the long run.
Mm.
Just getting a well balanced diet, not the American standard balance, but
Right.
making sure that you're getting plenty of fats, getting a moderate amount of protein, and a little bit of carbs. But you want to be getting most of your carbs from fruit and vegetables. I am a very strong believer in that. Because you're going to get the most nutrient dense diet if you're doing it from whole foods. And then staying active, and then stress is such a big factor on health as well. When you're stressed, your adrenals are constantly going off, and we're seeing so many people with adrenal fatigue, and which leads to so many other issues. So finding a way to deal with stress and stay active is just as important as eating a healthy diet.
So, what are ways that we can better handle our stress today if we don't have, like the time? Like the first thing that comes to my mind is like get a massage, but surely there's other ways. Surely there's other ways that we can better manage our stress. Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. So like a lot of women are working. So when you're working before you eat, do some deep breathing exercises because when you're stressed and you're eating food, it just kind of sits there like a rock in your stomach. So a good way to do that is just to take a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. And just do deep breathing exercises where you inhale and hold your breath for a couple of seconds, then let it out slowly. So this is just kind of telling your body like, hey, everything's okay, and it can kind of help you recuperate and relax a little bit. Um, Getting a massage is great. Doing detox baths at night. Essential oils, which I'm sure you know a lot more about that than I do. um, so yeah, just little things like that, and you really anything can be a de-stressor as long as you can do it to where your body's relaxed. You're not thinking about outside things. It can be a couple of minutes. That's all you really need to do. If it's a couple of minutes, do it more frequently throughout the day. If you have a time where you can, journal for 20 minutes or something like that, or have a prayer time, those are all great things to do. And then exercise is a good one too.
Do you think that we should be taking any sort of like supplements? Because I know that most of all my friends somehow find their way like at Walmart to and they're doing like the women's one a day thing. Is that really beneficial, or should we be more aware of doing something else?
Sure. So, like taking a multivitamin, fine, because a lot of our foods aren't as nutrient dense as they should be. So, yeah, doing a multivitamin, vitamin D is usually something that people are very deficient in because we don't get out in the sun as much as we should. So taking a good quality vitamin D that has K with it, so it's easily absorbed. Those would be good to do. A fish oil, getting your omegas in because we don't usually eat as much as fish. I usually recommend, like, if you like fish, doing that 3 times a week instead of taking a supplement for it. But those are some basics, and probiotics too. So those are usually, like, the main ones that you can't really go wrong with taking. But it just really depends on the individual and what their deficiencies are or what they're going through on what they need.
So how can any normal person find out what their deficiencies are?
I mean, there's tests for it. We offer a lot through our office. There's a lot of nutrient profiles you can do. You can do blood work for it. Um, Again, and also listening to your body. I mean, you might crave some things, and if you're eating a good diet, then it should be meeting most of your needs of the basic nutrients. But again, definitely seek out a professional if you think there's something more serious going, because there are tests that can be run to pinpoint areas.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all this great information. Before we finish, I wanted to ask you a few like rapid fire questions.
Okay.
I wanted to know, what is your one guilty pleasure?
Chocolate. I love chocolate. That's one thing
We're
that I
just talking about food.
But yeah, chocolate for sure. But I try to make sure it's not in the house. But if I get a little bit of it, then I have to eat a lot of it. So I try to avoid it as much as possible.
And I saw you also do Spartan races with your husband, right?
I do.
So
Yep. That's
when did
a
you
lot of.
guys when did you guys get into that? Or what made
When we
you?
first started dating, yeah, well, we've always been into like fitness and exercise and those things. And I liked that it was competitive, but he was in them way before we even met. And so he just was like, hey, we should do one. And then we did really well in them. So we just kept doing them. And it's just something to train for and have a goal in mind.
So do you guys actually do the competing side of it, or do you do just the recreational side of it?
Just the recreational. We don't, that's a lot of time to put into it if I was going to do it competitively. And I think I would get so competitive that I might overdo it. So I try not to stress about it.
Yeah, my husband does them and he's trying to convince me to do them. But when I went to his recent one, it had rained the day before the race, and then it was in like this cow pasture. And so even just like walking up to it, they were just like, what do you call, like, I don't know, cow poop or whatever. And we were just like walking. And so the whole time it just smelled, and I was just looking at the mud and stuff. And I'm like, I know that there's no way that that's not like full of just like cow poop over there. Cause if we just walked all this way. And so I'm like it's going to take a little bit more convincing to get me maybe now to do one.
Yeah, no, I haven't had that as an obstacle yet, but
Okay. Yeah.
that
You're like,
doesn't sound as fun to do. But the ones we like to go to are the ones in Austin, and it's really pretty up there. So it's they're a little bit more enjoyable than running in a cow pasture.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. You're glad you weren't there. So what book has been the most influential, right? Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Probably, it's by Chip Ingram. It's called Good to Great. And it was just the first chapter that had the most impact on my life, and it was to think great thoughts. Um, and that probably had the biggest impact on my life. Just, again, it kind of tied in with focusing on what's true about you and about God. And so that just really changed my perspective on things, on like how much bad stuff I was pouring into my life by what I was watching, even the people I was around. So it had some really good insight on just getting closer with God and spending time with Him, and just showing like why it's so important to do that. So it had a big impact on my life.
Yeah, I think we actually have that book here, and it is an awesome book. So hopefully that,
Mhm.
and it's by Chip Ingram, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just so other people can maybe look it up. If you could have lunch with one famous person, who would it be?
Probably Dirk Nowitzki.
Really?
Yeah, just because he seems like such a nice, humble guy, and I just grew up watching him play. And he's definitely someone who I always looked up to. I didn't really play his position or anything like that, but I just liked his character on the court. So I'd like to meet him and his wife.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I couldn't stand next to him though because I'm only 5 feet tall. So, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
That's a good question. Um, I don't know because I feel like I learned so much from my past. I wouldn't really want to change it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But maybe just not to be so serious about things because I've always been a perfectionist and a worrier, and I definitely got set free from a lot of those things. So maybe just not to be so serious.
I think that's good.
hmm Yeah, it would definitely make life more enjoyable if you're not, you know, so worried.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on. And there was just like so much information that I learned, and your story is just really inspiring. And I'm excited to share it with others and for others to hear it, and hopefully um, help somebody out there that can relate to some of what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was great talking with you, and I will be praying for you because what you're doing is really great by putting stories out there for everyone to hear, and it's a good passion to have to try to help other people.
Thank you. So, if anybody's in the area, where can they find you if they want to seek out your services?
Sure. So I have Worth, or work in the office in Lake Worth, and they can go to abundantlifewellnesscenter.com and look at our services there, in our bios. And so I'm on there. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I will link the website also in the show notes. But
Okay.
thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks for listening. For today's show notes for this episode, go to today'seden.com/podcast, TODAYSEDEN.com. Also, make sure to check out the blog. I write about all sorts of stuff on there, life stories, health, wellness, you name it. So make sure you check that out. Until next time, do what they think you can't do.